Hey everyone, welcome to episode 363 of the All Dolphins podcast, where we're soon to reach a number I won't be able to say because I can't count that high. Anyway, it is Wednesday, September 18th, 2024, joined once again by guest host, co-host, guest, however you want to call it, Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel, sentinel.com, and host of the Dolphins Deep Dive with, appropriately enough, Perk, long time no see. Actually, it was only this afternoon.
Yep. You know what? In 2 days, you're going to have a full year's worth of shows. I could watch one show every day. 365.
Yeah, except no, you know what though? The numbering number doesn't work because we actually started this bad boy in March 2023. So how does that work? That we have skipped some days. There you go. That's the reason, because it's now we're going on a year and a half. So.
Yeah, but by show, I could watch one show every day.
For a year, one show a day. There you go. Yes, yeah. And you should do that, and everybody should do that.
That's right.
And then
buy an ad,
and then subscribe, and then tell everybody, and then we build up that subscriber base to 10 times what it is now. We're at 14.4, so 144,000. There we go. That's the goal. Okay, but we digress badly. So today is first injury report of the week. Day. Dolphins are playing at Seattle. It's on the West Coast. That means a late injury report, much to the dismay of Perk, myself, and everybody who covers the Dolphins. We want that thing in our hand early afternoon or as early as possible. It was also quarterback talking day. That this week meant Skylar Thompson. Tyler Huntley also spoke after his first practice as a member of the Miami Dolphins. And there are several other notes to discuss. The health status of Teron Armstead and the other injured players. I guess we should start with the injury report, right, Perk?
Let's do it.
One player didn't practice because of injury. That was Teron Armstead, who's dealing with a shoulder injury. And then Calais Campbell had a rest day. And Mike McDaniel, before practice, had a rather cryptic update on the status of Teron Armstead, basically talking about how he's a great guy. He puts in a lot of work and he plays well despite the setbacks, and he had showing off his pearly whites before practice. Did I summarize that pretty well?
That you did. That's pretty much the whole press conference today. It was a lot of talk and didn't really give us any answers. I was a little bit surprised with Teron's status because if I'm not mistaken, I thought Wednesdays he usually got a vet rest day. I might be recalling that incorrectly, but yeah, I was a little bit surprised for that status today. I don't know what it means long term, but it's an interesting kind of turn of events, and from what we are used to seeing for the previous 2 years, almost two seasons, that Wednesday is a vet rest day for Teron, and then if he didn't practice on Thursday, it would be called, due to the injury, and he would go through the Friday practice, which is basically a half speed deal, and he would do Saturday, which is a walkthrough. A little bit surprised, but we'll wait and see. I will say that Teron could barely lift that right arm when he was in the game. It did not look good. I was surprised that McDaniel was so upbeat on Monday when talking about Teron.
No, and if you recall, he had a harness around that right shoulder. He left the game for like 4 or 5 plays, came back, and then left for good.
Yep.
And while you were talking, I pulled up that first injury report on Wednesday of week 1, and indeed, Campbell and Teron were vet rest DNP for the Wednesday. So today, almost would have half expected to have vet rest / shoulder. The fact that it was only shoulder, I don't even know exactly what it means. It means he's dealing with a shoulder injury, and who knows what it means as far as his outlook for Sunday against the Seahawks. Obviously, we don't need to talk about how much the Dolphins need him in that offensive line. He's a massive difference maker. For those who believe in the Pro Football Focus grades, he's the highest graded Dolphin player through the first 2 games of the season. And that's not surprising. The dude he's a great player.
Yeah, and no, I didn't know if you were finished. And
no, you sound like Perk. Hold on, you sound like Barry Gibb and the Saturday Night Live skit of the Barry Gibb talk show where Jimmy Fallon turned over to Justin Timberlake and said, "Robin, do you have any thoughts on this?" No. No, I don't.
Yeah, I didn't know that you were done. And look, I'll add this about Teron. We know what he means on the field, off the field. You know, you always see Teron counseling other players, especially young players. That happens on the sideline during games also. So when Teron isn't out there, it's not only the physical, two-time Pro Bowl selection, it's that team captain, team leader type of quality you also miss. That's very valuable.
Absolutely, without question. So those were the only two guys who pulled the DNP. Everybody else at least was limited, and that includes Robert Jones, who also left the game early against Buffalo with a shoulder injury, Jeff Wilson Jr., who left that game early with an oblique injury, Raheem Mostert, back after missing the game against the Bills because of a chest injury, Malik Washington, who didn't practice at all last week, even though it was a very short, clunky week because of the Thursday night game. He hasn't played yet, the rookie 6th-round pick from USC. He was also listed as limited with his quad injury. And the fact that he was out there maybe is part of the reason that Robbie Chosen was released from the practice squad on Tuesday when the Dolphins also added Jackson Carman, former Cincinnati Bengal, who, by the way, I did not get a very good scouting report on from my Cincinnati Bengals on SI counterpart.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm encouraged that Devon Achane is not on the injury report. So he was on there week 1 with the ankle. Then he plays a game on a short week, has 29 touches, and is not on the injury report. That's very, very encouraging.
No, that's a very, very good point. And he may be counted on. I don't know that the Dolphins want to make it a habit to give him 29 touches because he's not built for that. But again, was it necessity is the mother of invention or something like that? The rest of the injury report, wide receiver Grant Dubose has a shoulder injury listed as limited. And again, always going to put my caveat when somebody is limited with a new injury that had not been listed before. There was nothing reported from the press box on Thursday. A lot of times what that means is he was injured during practice. Not necessarily, but a lot of times. So let's keep an eye on that. And then the other one, Jalen Phillips, is going to be there for a while, I think, because his reps are probably limited because he's recovering from the Achilles injury. And lastly, Liam Eichenberg, who was on the injury report last week with a shoulder injury, played every snap, listed as a full participant, so I don't think there'll be an issue there. But I'd keep an eye on Dubose. Again, not necessarily that he's a vital player, except the Dolphins are low on numbers at wide receiver. And this very well could mean with Robbie Chosen now gone. And if either one of Dubose or Washington can't play, to me, that would suggest Eric Ezukama is getting his first action of the season as an elevation.
Yep. Ezukama, who might have lost his number considering Tyler Huntley was wearing number 18 today. Although he didn't have a name on his jersey, he did have that number. So for those of you who care about such things, we'll keep an eye on that.
And he's 18 on the roster. And as I wrote in a notebook on Miami Dolphins on SI, oddly enough, at MiamiDolphinsOnSI.com, there's no connection to that number. He wore number 2 for the Ravens in his 4 seasons there. Can't have that here because of Bradley Chubb. And he wore number 1 at Utah. Obviously can't have that here. So I don't know what the connection is to 18. If it was high school number or whatever. So he took that number as Ukama went from 18 to 86. Yeah. Again, for those who care about such things. The Seahawks injury report is quite interesting. 18 names. There's one guy who's a rest player, though. That's the guard, Laken Tomlinson. Former 49ers, went to the Jets, kind of flopped with the Jets, to be honest, now with Seattle. But everybody else is dealing with some sort of injury, including, and as I mentioned on the podcast with Brandon King from Hawks Nest out in Seattle. You all right there, Park?
I'm not.
I know. See, you know what I'm about to talk about, and you're getting all choked up because it's emotional, and you're right. It is a little bit emotional.
Yes, it is. My water bottle's empty too.
Because I'm talking about the possibility of Jerome Baker maybe having to miss this game. He left the game early Sunday when the Seahawks beat the Patriots 23-20 in overtime with a hamstring injury. I don't know if there's any indication. Apparently, the word out of Seattle, and Perk, tell me if you're familiar with this, is that Mike McDonald their coach is very tight when it comes to injury information. So,
yeah, I don't know anything about that, but that injury report, if you're a Seattle fan, it's very troubling.
So the rest of the guys who did not practice, the biggest name would be Kenneth Walker, the third, their starting running back, who is a really, really good player. Mm-hmm. Has an oblique injury. He didn't play against New England. So that's something to keep an eye on. Outside of that, a couple of their pass rushers, their linebacker pass rushers, Uchenna Nwosu has a knee injury, and Boye Mafe also has a knee injury. Again, those are two of their good outside pass rushers. They also have a very good defensive line. Their front seven's pretty good. They have a couple of really good cornerbacks. Their whole defense is pretty good. Yes. With Woolen's a hell of a cornerback. Devin Witherspoon on the other side, the first-round pick from last year. They've done pretty well for themselves. But as you mentioned, quite the injury report for the Seahawks. Let's move on.
Julian Love also in the secondary is a good player. I'm just saying he's a Pro Bowl player from last year.
Yeah, he is not on the injury report.
No.
I don't see Richard Sherman or –
but I believe
Brandon Browner. Who?
I believe DK Metcalf is on there, though, right?
Yes, he is. No, yeah. I was joking. Richard Sherman. I
know. I got that.
Boom. DK Metcalf's on there. DK Metcalf, who may be the only NFL player in the league who makes Jalen Phillips looks scrawny. Yeah. I mean, that guy. And we'll get to Jalen Phillips in a little bit too. Subject of your column, I wrote about him as well, with some pretty strong comments on social media. I guess we should move on to Tua. He was a big topic of conversation again on Wednesday because Mike McDaniel was addressing the media for the first time since the Dolphins put him on IR. And basically, again, it comes down to no timeline. We don't want timelines. Go on IR. There's no timelines on IR. Well, there's one, but it's 5 weeks down the road. So we don't have to deal with anything but Tua getting better. And McDaniel was asked whether Tua kind of fought the idea of going on IR, and he kind of didn't really answer the question. Did say he was going to stay involved. Go ahead, Frank.
That was the routine from today. I told you there was a lot of talking and not a lot of answers. So, and Mike is usually pretty good with us, except when it comes to revealing injury information. And today, he really lived up to that reputation.
Yeah, and Mike can be verbose, and he can elaborate on an answer. And he did a couple of times today where the answer, and if you look at the transcript, it's like really, really long. And what you can take, you maybe can take 2 lines out of it that are useful. But such is life in the big city. Did say Tua has been involved and will continue to stay involved, like whether he mentioned team meetings, he mentioned out on the field. Tua can do anything he would normally do if he was on the active roster except practice and play. And then even McDaniel was asked about – go ahead.
No, I was going to say it sounds like Tua is pretty lucid and pretty with it and in good spirits because, the descriptions that we heard were that Tua has been fairly actively involved this week in helping the team and talking to players – in helping Tyler Huntley, in helping Skylar Thompson. So, it sounds as though Tua is good physically and is in a good place mentally. We'll see what the, concussion specialists say. But from what we're hearing, he's up and about and doing kind of like you said, some normal things if he was on the active roster.
Correct. And whether we like it or not, I think the optics of Tua not going on IR would be so bad considering what happened in 2022, the fact there was a primetime injury again, the fencing posture. I think it's almost where, you hear from certain media members or whatever, almost suggesting that the NFL is getting involved and like saying, put him on the sideline for a bit. But I think for all parties involved, it would be a really bad look if Tua, if there wasn't a period of time where he'd be on the sideline, which is why IR made sense from the very beginning.
It's due diligence and everything along those lines that when you're dealing with a head injury, if this was a knee or a shoulder or something like that, that's different. This is a head injury, as you said, 2 Thursday night games, Cincinnati, and then this one where it just does not look good. Cincinnati, he goes off on a stretcher. So yeah, for Tua's sake and for the league's sake, you had to kind of take this step, right? Just to kind of show, yes, we're taking this very seriously. Even if he would have gotten medical clearance yesterday, I think this step is necessary.
Let's pivot to Skylar Thompson here. I'm going to start with an apology to Skylar because for some reason my recollection was, and it's backed up by the numbers, like, man, he was rough in that playoff game against Buffalo. And you know what? And I had a couple of people like push back on it on the podcast. And I was like, let me do my due diligence and go back and rewatch that game. And I rewatched that game and it's like, damn, he wasn't that bad at all. I mean, at all. The numbers were really bad. It was 18 for 44, 220 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 44.7 passer rating. You look at that and but 3 clear drop passes, including his first pass of the day, which was a 35-yard shot down the field to Jalen Waddle, which was underthrown, but still clear to Waddle, and he just dropped it. Tyreek Hill had a drop. Jeff Wilson Jr. had a drop. There was another pass to Waddle that could have been like a 25-yard, 30-yard gain over the middle that Waddle failed to catch cleanly. And once he bobbled it one time, it went up. The Bills defender, I believe it was Teron Johnson, swiped it away. That did not go as a drop in the analytics, but it was a drop. And then there was pressure. The pressure rate that he had was like twice what Tua got last Thursday night. And if you watch a lot of those plays, including the last play on offense, the 4th down incompletion to Mike Gesicki, for those who remember the game, he's flushed out of the pocket and has to throw on the run. And he made a couple of throws. Yeah, there were a couple of throws out that weren't very good. He had 2 picks that were forced passes. One of them he didn't see a linebacker running underneath Tyreek Hill while he's rolling out to his left. But overall, no, not nearly as bad as I think it was made out to be. Not only me, but a lot of other people. And it would give me a reason to believe that maybe this notion that automatically it's going to be a disaster for the Dolphin offense because Skylar Thompson's the quarterback, I'm not buying it no matter how rough it looked in the preseason.
I'm not buying it either. And look, the Buffalo game, there are also some chain of command issues, right? Getting the plays in. And that's not Skylar's fault, especially on that final play. Yep. And look, what I would emphasize once again is let's not make this all about Skylar Thompson. We have a bunch of other guys that got contract extensions and restructures, right? Mike McDaniel, do more. Tyreek Hill, do more. Jalen Waddle, do more. Jalen Ramsey, do more. Right? I mean, these are big-name guys. Javon Holland, you're trying to get a contract extension? Do some more. Like, all of these guys who have these big names, we can't just let them off the hook and put it all on Skylar Thompson, a backup. He's a backup for a reason. You have a bunch of big-name guys, Teron Armstead, Jordan Poyer, Jordan Brooks, David Long Jr., Zach Sealer. Get out there and do something. Show us why you're a Pro Bowl selection. Show us why you're a team captain. Show us why you're a seasoned veteran. This is not just on Skylar. This is actually probably more on everybody else. Now, clearly, Skylar is the quarterback, and he's got to be on his game. But, this is just as much or maybe even more on everybody else because they're starters, they're Pro Bowl players, they're seasoned vets, they're guys who just got their bag. Don't put this all on the second team guy.
So what you're trying to say, though, is do more.
Do more than your 111th for the first time in your career, right? You never hear this. Do more than your 111th.
How about do 1.1 and then Skylar doesn't have to do anything?
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
My biggest concern isn't even Skylar Thompson in this game from an offensive standpoint. My biggest concern is the offensive line holding up against the Seattle pass rush, which by all accounts is very good, especially if Teron Armstead doesn't play. And Robert Jones being limited on Wednesday, much rather have him in the lineup than not. If it's not Teron Armstead, I'm gonna say it again. To me, the notion that the Dolphins are gonna throw Patrick Paul in there, sorry, I'm not buying it for a millisecond. It's gonna be Kendall Lamb, who is serviceable, is a good backup, but there's a drop off, and there are times when he doesn't hold. Like he had a rough game after he came into the game against Buffalo, even though at that time, the score's out of the hand a little bit. Buffalo knows you're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Not quite the same. But that's my bigger concern, especially since Skyler has some mobility, but he's not necessarily, for example, Tyler Huntley with the Dolphins Snoop Huntley, would be ideal in this particular situation, though I do think Skylar Thompson's a better passer than Tyler Huntley, despite his Pro Bowl when he was the 32nd alternate and everybody else bailed out in the game. And that's why, no offense to Tyler, and I'm happy for him that he got it on his resume and all that, but I refuse to put former Pro Bowl quarterback in my headlines.
Wow. That's all right. Well, he is a Pro Bowl quarterback. He is a Pro Bowl quarterback. Let me ask you this, Poop. And I might have talked about this with you. I get my podcast confused. The fact that Skyler cannot necessarily do the same things as Tua as far as the quick delivery, the quick reads, does that bring the interior offensive line and its lack of the ability to maintain blocks, does that bring that more into play? Does that make that more of a factor? Tua had that ball out in 2.5 seconds. Yeah. You didn't have to maintain those blocks for long. If Skyler has to hold the ball for 2.73 seconds, does that mean the offensive line's vulnerability becomes more apparent?
Well, yeah, sure. But you're still going to get some bubble screens and some logically some bubble screens, some jet sweeps, some end around, stuff like that. What you're generally not going to get where Tua is very good is that quick slant.
Mm-hmm.
And
that Tyreek took for a touchdown against Jacksonville. The 80-yard.
Well, no, that was deep. On that play, actually, he was going to Jalen Waddle on a quick slant, and Waddle was covered, so he kind of kind of double clutched and went, oh, okay, I can't throw it here, and then looked up, and Tyreek was deep. I'm talking about like the immediate 6-7 yard pass where Tyreek and Waddle get off the line and quickly get inside the defenders, and it's a really quick, easy completion.
Yep.
Tua is excellent at those.
Yep.
And I don't know that Skyler can do well. No, I know Skyler can't do that nearly as effectively as Tua can do it. Can he do it to a certain level of effectiveness? That's a question. And then, but again, it's not like the offensive line at some point is going to put on the big pants and have to block, and Skyler's got to make some throws. What he can't do is avoid the bad mistakes, as I mentioned in that Buffalo game. And by the way, I wrote about this, the Buffalo game. I broke it down. What he's got to avoid is the bad decisions where he tried to force something when there's nothing there. Know the situation. One of those was a 3rd and 19 from the Dolphins 8. And he's trying to hit Trent Sherfield down the left sideline between 2 defenders. Good luck. Recognize the situation. If it's not there, the old cliche, live to see another down.
Yeah. Yep. And look, he's got to get some help from everybody else. And I'm talking defensively, and I'm talking special teams. Jason Sanders has been, I know he's got the missed field goal this season, but he did kick you to victory against Jacksonville, and he did kick you into the playoffs the previous 2 seasons. So, again, we can't put all of this on Skyler, and I know you're not. But he's got to get help. He's got defense. That Buffalo game, you remember Zach Sealer scored a touchdown, right? It was Sealer who, yeah. So again, everybody's got to chip in and help. And, you get a defensive touchdown and it ends up 34-31, even though the offense isn't having a great game. So if everybody kind of chips in and does a little bit more, Skyler can come out of this looking much better than a lot of fans think that he will come out of this looking.
Yeah, and it's not like Seattle's like a juggernaut offense. They do. I mean, they have a great wide receiver core with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and then Smith-Njigba. That's a pretty damn good wide receiver trio. Geno Smith would be a solid quarterback. Yep. Kenneth Walker makes a big difference if he's not there. I mean, they have Zach Charbonnet is the backup, yep, and he's not a bad running back, but Kenneth Walker's a difference maker. And if Kenneth Walker's not there, again, this is where the Dolphin defense needs to step up. Let's pivot to Tyler Huntley. And I know I see a lot of Dolphin fans, and I also see like some media members almost like counting down the days when Huntley takes over, the offense. And to me, it's like, well, number one, that would be a massive indictment on the front office that you didn't get the right guy in the first place. Yep. And then number two, and I'm trying to say with all due respect, I mean, I'm sorry, when was I not there when Tyler Huntley became Lamar Jackson Jr.? I mean,
right. Yeah. And look, the guys are available right now for a reason, even if they're on a practice squad, right? I mean, look, the guy is, I doubt very seriously that he's going to turn into Brock Purdy. You have a better chance of Skylar Thompson turning into Brock Purdy. That's just the cold hard facts. If Skylar does not do a good job, you are exactly right, Poop. It's an indictment on the front office, and a lot is at stake for the front office on Skylar playing well, because you did have an entire you saw this guy all last season as the number 3. You had an entire offseason to get another quarterback. You had an entire training camp to put Mike White in there and have him win that battle. You cannot, as soon as Skylar Thompson's turn comes up, you cannot say, we don't believe in this guy, let's go find somebody else. You can't do that. And look, with Snoop Huntley, you did take Tim Boyle first, right? So let's not act like Snoop Huntley is the man. And I know you probably took Tim Boyle for different reasons, but he had the Matt LaFleur recommendation, and you probably thought that you were gonna be fine sticking with kind of a drop back passer a little bit. But Snoop Huntley does tell me, and you might have said this first, Poop, that Mike McDaniel probably recognizes I need a more agile quarterback. I need a different dimension to my offense. You're not going to call the same plays for Snoop Huntley that you did for Tua and that you will for Skylar, because Snoop Huntley gives you a different dimension. He can use his feet to become an added offensive weapon. So it's a change in style. So I do like that from Mike McDaniel, but I do think that that's also some awareness and kind of a small strategic philosophical change.
Yeah, but also understand that they chose Boyle for the practice squad, and Huntley was already on the
right.
Baltimore practice squad. And mind you, he went as a free agent in the offseason. He signed with the Browns, and the Browns stacked up their quarterback room with Deshaun Watson, who they can't get rid of, Jameis Winston, and Dorian Thomas Robinson. Mm-hmm. And then they wound up choosing those 3, and they cut Huntley. And the Ravens didn't sign him back to their 53, which they could have, and they signed him to the practice one. Their backup quarterback to Lamar Jackson is Josh Johnson,
yep,
who is the pure definition of a journeyman. So again, Tyler Huntley's a good story, and he's got some mobility and all that. But can we pump the brakes a little bit on this vision of him taking over on the offense, and all of a sudden the Dolphin offense becomes explosive again? And then you know what? I'm not sure when to call him Scoop, because I like this idea of Skylar and Tyler.
Yeah, I know. It confuses me. I think I'm probably going to call him Snoop, and I'll try not to call him Snoop Menace also.
Oh, Marvin Menace, wide receiver, Florida State. Great reference. I like that.
Yep. Can I add one thing about Skylar?
But thanks for asking. Go ahead, sure.
Look, for the people who are, expecting great things from Skylar, let me say this: the Dolphins, under in the Mike McDaniel era, with Tua starting, they are 7-8 in road games, and that I'm not including the Cincinnati game. 7 and 8 in road games. The Dolphins have 3 of their next 4 on the road, 5 of their next 7 on the road. So, I mean, think about that. Tua was not even a 500 quarterback. So before you go judging Skyler and what's he going to be after these next 4, 3 of them are on the road. I'm not sure that Tua would have gone 3-1 or 4-0. I mean, 2-2, I know you've got sub 500 teams and not playoff teams, but I'm just saying let's add a little bit of reality for the expectation, for the realistic expectation here.
No, I agree. To me, I've said all along, I think Dolphins should look to come out of this 4-game stretch 2-2,
right,
based on who they're playing against. It's not a juggernaut of a stretch here in terms of opponents. And in fact, this, if you're looking at it on paper, is the toughest opponent of the 4, because the next 3 are Tennessee at home, at New England, and at Indy after the bye. So 2-2, 3-1, if things go well. Let me pivot real quickly to, by the way, quick nugget, Myles Gaskin signed to the active roster by the Minnesota Vikings off their practice squad. So good for Myles. Good dude. Same thing with Chris Brooks in Green Bay.
Yep.
One of my man crushes in training camp last year. I'm going to keep it very curious as to see what he does with the Green Bay Packers. Let us go ahead and close out with Jalen Phillips and his Instagram post, where he basically talked about feeling, and I'm paraphrasing here, and then if I don't do it justice, Perk, please correct me, basically feeling worthless when he has a bad game, and feeling that way after the game against the Buffalo Bills. And then today, he spoke to the media, and then he went on X saying, I wasn't looking for sympathy and all that, but this is just expressing human emotions. And this is a guy who, I mean, of all the people who should not have any concerns about self-esteem and all that, I mean, that guy is like, you want to talk about achievements up the wazoo. First of all, he was a first-round pick who's had 3 good seasons in the NFL. Off the field, he was, the Dolphins' Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee 1 year. Then he won the Nat Moore Community Service Award from the team the following year. Earned his bachelor's degree from the University of Miami this offseason. He's well-trained in music. I mean, dude is like a massive achiever, big time. So it's like, but you're seeing the window into a guy who puts an enormous amount of pressure on himself.
Yeah, and, I wrote about it. I didn't do it justice. I'm going to say that. It wasn't one of my better columns. I was a little rushed, but I really admire and respect Jalen Phillips for being so raw, because you're right. This is a guy who was the #1 high school recruit, went to UCLA, had a concussion issue, retired from football briefly, came back and attended UM, and has had good success. Is a member of the DCC, Dolphins Cancer Challenge board. Like charity, academics, good looks, good body, athletic, smart. He's got everything, but he still has these feelings of self-doubt, self-hatred, he said. Self-worth. He went really, really deep in this, and you're just kind of like, wow, this guy, that he's really bearing his soul here. So I asked him how the response has been, and he said it's been a good, positive response. So he also said, a lot of men think it's weak to talk about your feelings, and that's not true, that people call you soft, or that people think that it's soft to do that, and that's not true. So he really shot down a lot of myths and a lot of stereotypes, and really kind of told people it's okay to feel bad about yourself, but just do something about it. Don't kind of wallow in that bad feeling. Do something about it. Be strong. Tomorrow can be a better day. And I thought it was a really, really good, positive, uplifting message. And again, somebody who is really raw. And it really, this team, as much as we've talked about this week with Tyreek and Tua, then here comes Jalen Phillips with this incredible insight, and this great mental health type of message. And this is a deep team. It can do a lot of things on and off the field.
And I don't think I'm going on a limb here or speaking out of turn when I say that Jalen Phillips is universally probably acknowledged among the media members an absolute gem, one of the probably top 5 guys in the locker room to deal with. I mean, he is just this is a guy you root for. And Teron Armstead, we mentioned, and Jalen Phillips is like, it's a matter of time before he wins the Good Guy Award, which we give out for, dealings with the media. So this is a guy, again, this is a guy you root for beyond just what he can do for the team. So would be a great bounce back for him, if he winds up with a game clinching sack against the Seahawks on Sunday. Right?
Yeah. Oh, it would that would be a great ending to this chapter of a week for Jalen Phillips, and really for the Dolphins, and a victory, baby. That would be a great ending for this week, wouldn't it, for all involved? Let's
wish it into existence. On that note, we're going to wrap it up. Please like, subscribe, share, download, whatever you do to a podcast to express your gratitude and approval. Would greatly appreciate everybody for watching, first of all. And Perk, appreciate you for joining me again, as always. Find his work at sunsentinel.com. Every week, the Dolphins deep dive with Perk. And we're going to see you at camp tomorrow morning when it's coordinator day. And we'll be back tomorrow to recap everything. In the meantime, have a good one.